There is Singhania group of schools, Thane. She comes from there, and I think it's a legacy of schools at many places across Pan-India. A passionate educator, somebody about the school, at least I've been reading about a lot about it, therefore I've always had connection with that education. And the topic that she talks about is paradigm shift in education. I'll still leave you with the question that NEP 2020 has really brought in a paradigm shift. Few prominent highlighted, just one line is paradigm shift that you have come across, and will they match with Matt's vision or not? Let's have that towards the end of that.
Lunch, and I'm sure that there's something that we're looking forward to the whole of this afternoon. I asked myself why this question, and one thought that came to me that while we were all driving from Delhi to Sonipat, I was with a couple of friends whom I'm meeting for the first time, co-principals, and we were talking about schooling. And what did we talk about? Not what we learned, the chemistry and the physics, but all the fun times that we had and all that we did other than vectors, adjustments along the way, increases efficiency, documentation. He readies for the final presentation that needs to be given to the board to say that, hey, here is a road that you wanted me to make, and here is a port that we have made. And then amidst all this ruckus, there's one gentleman who runs up, goes on to the top of another tree, looks down over there and says, hey, wrong way. So the entire effort goes back once again. Let's try and picturize that in the field of education. We are doing just that. We keep saying that, oh, Finland is doing this, let's do this. NEP says this, let's do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And rightly said by General Kulkarni, I think it's not necessary for us to have a policy to say do this and do that. It's important for us to believe that this is what my children need. And I think one of the greatest mistakes in it, if I were to relate this particular story to our education system, it is that we need to believe what we need for our students in our schools. It is not about where are we being ranked, or are we better than someone else, or anything of that kind. There cannot be any comparisons in the field of education. Everyone is on the same platform, and that's where I begin my story. This is a story that I've adapted from Stephen Covey's. So is education a jigsaw puzzle? I constantly feel it is sometimes, and it shouldn't be, but it is. Because we take all these small pieces and piece them together and say, this is education. And we are all the time, while we talk about education, we are talking about schooling, and schooling is not equal to education. And when we talk about education, we also talk about qualifications, and education is not equal to qualifications. Both are different. So we are combining parts and making it a whole. I wish we see education as a whole and then make the parts. Because then when you piece them together, you have a broader picture and a very clear picture of what we really want to do. This is how all of us would imagine our schools to be. A fun place. Children love to come to school and love to go back home as well and come back the next morning to school. So it's a fun place. We can do all these activities. But in the system that we are in, where there is mainstream education, are we able to do that? No. So we really have to balance between one and the other. You have to have this and you have to have academics. So it requires a lot of courage to be doing that. And when I say you require courage, it means the very purpose of education should be outlined in your mind. And what kind of education would you want to be? So I relate this incident to something that I did about 16 years back. I threw out textbooks from my school. We are a school coming under the ICSE. But I said we are writing our exams only in 10th. So my children need to do the actual learning. You can imagine the uproar that would have happened amongst parents who said, what's this lady gone out of her mind that there are no textbooks? What are my children going to be doing at home when they come home? There's no book to study. And I said, it's perfectly all right. And you wouldn't believe, in a month I would have addressed at least 23 days of the month addressing parents, because that was a kind of reaction, if I would say negative reaction. But very slowly they started to get convinced, because they started, and I was very clear about one thing: just because you don't have textbooks doesn't mean you can replace them with worksheets, because then you might as well have textbooks, right? So there were no worksheets going home. So the parents said, what are we going to bring you? And our fingers about, what are we going to do at home? And that comes to the next question, that if you're planning your curriculum, and if you really want learning to happen, and if you really want education to change in your own school, and you need to think about it, you need to start looking at how are you going to view education. So I did the next best thing: no exams till grade 7. So exams out of the window, children were jubilant. Then introduced something called an open textbook exam. An open textbook exam that children were very happy about. The concepts, when I introduced, parents were extremely happy because they thought they could do it well. But the averages dipped very badly, because children did not anticipate an open textbook answer would not be an answer that they can directly lift from the textbook. So when I was passing by the classrooms, I saw that all the textbooks were having highlighters, their notes, whatever they had written, their class notes.